Welcome back, Truth Seeker. June 11th, 2019. One of the top news stories is Jon Stewart, an actor and a comedian, giving his angry testimony about how displeased he is with the U.S. Congress not showing up to listen to the first responders on 9/11 who are now dying from the illnesses they contracted that day, which are likely due to the explosives that were used that day to take down those buildings. Again, the American sheeple didn't pick up on the fact that they called the site Ground Zero the day of 9/11, the day of the very clear demolitions, when in fact the only definition for Ground Zero prior to that day was the point above or below ground where a nuclear or atomic bomb explodes. Anyhow, on June 11th, we have the comedian and actor one more time talking about 9/11, 6/11, 9/11. Where's Jimi Hendrix at? If 6 was 9. And I want to remind you that Jon Stewart is from the same tribe of people who were in New Jersey that day documenting the September 11th attacks and who were sent back to Israel. They are known as the Dancing Israelis. It is a fact that people from Israel were in New Jersey, were arrested, and were immediately sent back to Israel, and hardly any more noise was made about it. Just think about it. People from Israel who knew that 9/11 was going to happen, who were there to document the attacks, and almost nobody ever speaks about them. But they always bring up these Islamic boogeymen from the caves. And that's what Jon Stewart did today as well. So realize, Jon Stewart, he is making a reasonable point that yes, the Congress should be there to hear these people who are dying for helping out that day. That is a very real problem. But understand, the only reason you're hearing from this actor and comedian is so that he can say what he says right here, which is to repeat the lie and propaganda. And I want you to notice that this video is 9 minutes and 3 seconds long. Today is also 93 days from September 11th, and of course you have the 93 World Trade Center bombing and Flight 93, and we'll get to all of that. But just listen to the propaganda that comes out of this man's mouth. Member of the tribe. Here we go.
That it's a 9/11 New York issue. Al-Qaeda didn't shout death to Tribeca.
That's it. That's all that needed to be said right there. That's the propaganda. Al-Qaeda had zero to do with 9/11. Zero. Zero. There's no Al-Qaeda in the 9/11 attack. That's made up crap by the Jewish code of letters and numbers, which is Gematria, which comes from Jewish mysticism, Kabbalah. Al-Qaeda equals 102. They said the 9/11 attack lasted 102 minutes. That's the same as an hour and 42 minutes. 142. Terrorist is also 142. But look at this. It's not an accident that CNN, which does everything by the numbers, which is controlled by the tribe, has a 9-minute and 3-second clip, which is also how long his speech is. So here it is, from June 11th to September 11th, 2 dates that look an awful lot alike. You just tip them upside down, 93 days. And this building that's now there to remember the World Trade Centers that were bombed in 93 is the One World Trade Center, which equals 93. New York, NY is 93. They blame the 93 World Trade Center bombing on the Blind Sheik, which equals 93. The media taunted people with this image of the guy supposedly responsible for the 93 World Trade Center bombing, which if you've read my book is perfectly synced up with September 11th. And it happened right after Bill Clinton signed the document stopping the underground testing of nuclear and atomic weapons. And then what did they do after the 93 World Trade Center bombing? They worked under those buildings for months. What do you think they were doing? My guess is after 50 years of testing massive bomb explosions underground, they'd finally worked out the right formula, and those bombs were planted and were on a countdown to September 11, 2001. Don't forget propaganda's 93 either. And that's what, TV is. That's what Jon Stewart is. People just like Jon Stewart's brand of propaganda because he brings in more truth than most people do. Yeah, he's right to be lecturing the Congress about not being here today. He's right about that. But the real thing is to get him up there to just say Al-Qaeda, which is nothing but a lie. Al-Qaeda had nothing to do with 9/11. Al-Qaeda was created by the US and the CIA. Don't forget that either. They created their boogeyman because this event was planned decades in advance. 9/11 was planned at the end of World War II. The plan went into motion in 1968. Talked about it 100 times. In 1968, World Trade Center construction began. 911 was made the national emergency dialing code. George W. Bush graduated from Yale and Skull and Bones. 2001 A Space Odyssey came out. The New York Jets won their only Super Bowl, and not by accident. All of this stuff is rigged and controlled together. Don't forget the New York Jets sacked Drew Bledsoe and gave rise to Tom Brady right after the Patriot Act and the Patriots. It's all sick jokes. It's all controlled by the same gang. And they love to use entertainers, to mix in with their contrived reality. So, pay attention. It's always the same numbers. All anybody should be saying when it comes to 9/11 is, how come Israel hasn't been held accountable? How come Israel hasn't been held accountable? How come Israel hasn't been held accountable? And by the way, there was massive technology used that day. 93 is a big number with Israel. So many of their things are coded 93. Their technology program is called the Talpiot program. There was all sorts of technology used on the day of 9/11. But the Talpiot program is about dominating the world through their technological advantage, Israel's. And, again, Israel was drawn up in history on September 3rd, 1947, 9/3. Their Congress is called Knesset. The leader of their Congress is Edelstein, 93, and a million more things. This number is important to them. It represents Saturn, and Saturn has to do with time and judgment. So anyway, Jon Stewart, he wouldn't be on TV if he wasn't part of the tribe. If he'd go up there and say, how come we still haven't dealt with the dancing Israelis? How come we still haven't asked Israel how they had foreknowledge? Who else had foreknowledge in Israel? And then people forget that you had the Prime Minister of Israel at that time telling the United States of America the day of that we needed to declare a war on terrorism and invade the nations that we did. And that's all that matters. All this other stuff is just bullshit for sheeple. So if you still think it's Al-Qaeda and you like Comedy Central and Jon Stewart and Stephen Colbert and you wave around American flags, you're just a dumb sheep. Period. Period. End of discussion. Nothing more to say. You believe this? You think this guy did the 93 World Trade Center bombing? They put out this media. They put out images like this because they know they have a nation of dumb sheep. This is a giant fuck you from the tribe. Until next time.